I love Sex and the City. I wasn't around when it first came out, but I am fully conscious now, and I love critiquing that show with my 2026 hindsight. And that is my right, because that's exactly how we learn from the past. Didn't we all pick up on that in history class? A TV show about four white women navigating life in New York City. It stars a lawyer, an art curator, a magazine columnist, and whatever the hell Samantha does. The show surrounds their romantic endeavors as they try to make it in the big city, which Carrie chronicles in her column, sharing the titular name. It is based on the book of the same name by Candace Bushnell, which was based on the author's own New York Observer newspaper column, which ran from 1994 to 1996 and was about herself and her friends, also in New York City. Very meta. This narrative structure, writing stories about life, living so that you may chronicle it and write and then live somewhere, is very interesting, and it frames how we consume and experience the show. I have always found the show's ability to construct characters that are deeply flawed, yet do not collapse under those flaws and instead remain very interesting, an absolute brilliant display of writing on which the entire show rests. The show's narration, the characters' constant conversations with each other, it means we know exactly what they are thinking, and it creates a strong characterization scaffolded by complexity. We don't know a lot about any of the characters' backgrounds, really, but we still know why they do what they do and why they are the way that they are. And there is something very subtly impressive about all of that. The online discussion of the show thus centers the characters and analyzing their behavior, and with the exception of Big, who I personally despise more than Charlotte hates, quote, ethnic food,
Brother, ugh.
no one is more a source of ire than Carrie Bradshaw, the protagonist of the show. And I don't really get it. I too find her deeply flawed, annoying at times, obsessed with male validation, and at times a bad friend. But I couldn't possibly hate her. I hate written, or written to be so bad. It makes it hard to watch the show. But Carrie's flaws all make her interesting. Why? Because so many people are like her in real life, or at least share some traits with her. I do not find any of these traits to be lethal to her character. Characters need to have problems. That doesn't make them unlovable, just like it doesn't make us human beings unlovable. And so I couldn't help but wonder, what is it about Carrie? It is no secret that a lot of main characters in television shows were created to fit a specific role in the story, and so their characterization goes largely underdone, and they are often outshined by background characters developed. And that brings me to a very prominent point. There is a difference between a character being bad within the context of the world that they exist and being so poorly written they cannot simply help being the worst. It's a distinction between a bad person and an actual bad character. Sometimes, as I highlighted in my video on Maxton Hall, a character can be insufferable because they are written to be an inherent contradiction. And in their own fictional universe, that makes them hypocritical, ridiculous, and very annoying to be around. And so they're both bad characters and bad people, not mutually exclusive. But then again, there are also characters that are just written poorly, and I wouldn't really hold that against them. Another great example of that is Serena from Gossip Girl. After season 1, she serves no purpose, and they clearly have no idea what to do with her, and so she becomes incredibly obsessed with male validation. She comes in with a lot going for her as a reformed bad girl, running from her past, serving as a foil to Blair. In fact, while they did do a better job with Blair, she too also lost a lot of the layers that made her so strong in the first season. Both of these girls were defined by their contrast to one another, and so when they eventually reconciled, the writers were at a loss on how to continue with their stories. Blair at least stays at the center of most of the plot lines, but Serena is meant to be above all of that, doing better, and so she drifts in and out. If she does come into the story, It's because she's a victim, essentially. She lacks a lot of agency. They do try to lean into her past catching up to her, but ultimately, the show went on far too long for what they had in mind for the characters. And that doesn't really make me dislike Serena. It's just a shame what they did to her character. Devi and Never Have I Ever on Netflix. The literal worst. I can't stand her, but very well written. Also, unlike a lot of characters we see in these fictional worlds, she actually has growth. She is held accountable for her actions, and that forces her to learn and move on. Do I think she is uniquely disastrous at times? Yes. But there's a very good reason for all of that. Her dad passed away. She had such a traumatic response that she was wheelchair bound for an entire year. And she has a complicated relationship with her mother, which is complicated even further by her perfect Indian cousin who is now living with them. This all being the backdrop to a girl who wants really badly more than anything in the world, specifically just to lose her virginity, is a choice that makes it come across as superficial, which I believe is the basis of my issue with her. She has gone through far too much to be this boy obsessed. Shouldn't she be focused on, I don't know, the deeper meaning of life at this point? But she is a teenager, so it does somewhat make sense. And this all brings me back to Carrie, who is very well written yet remains deeply controversial. She is at times even criticized for things not specific to her, but to the fact that she is the main character. We do need to suspend our disbelief for a moment and accept the fact that we are consuming a fictional story. Like we all accept a social contract to exist in this social world, something similar does kind of apply when it comes to consuming fictional stories. And I've noticed that this unspoken, in my opinion, blatantly obvious rule has become less and less obvious in recent years. We are in the age of anti intellectualism. Because of that, media critics have become utterly ridiculous and focused on the wrong things that would easily make sense to anyone who has any understanding of the intrinsic elements of fictional stories. Quite simply, as long as things make sense within the defined context of the story, we should have no problem with it. I find many people criticizing Carrie for having, quote, main character syndrome, end quote. I'm gonna hold your hand when I say this. She is the main character. You cannot critique her because the storyline revolves around her. I mean, that doesn't even make any sense. And at no point really does Carrie ever make herself the center of the other girls' universe. Yes, there was that one time that she couldn't stop talking about Big, but the online memes presented as if it's this constant thing, when in reality, it is something that Carrie acknowledges is wrong when called out on it. And the other girls do call her out on it. That is one thing about Carrie. One thing I think genuinely sets her apart from other unlikable protagonists. She has some level of self-awareness. She knows that she's being irrational. She knows that she's doing something wrong. We cannot learn from characters if they continue to make the same mistakes again and again with no understanding of what the problem is. But if they can take even some level of accountability, even if they do mess up again, which is only natural, we are all human, if we can see some growth, we can progress together within the story. Carrie is a unique protagonist in that she is an active participant in the story. Oftentimes, characters are devices, things are happening around them. They could be switched out for a character who has a completely different set of characteristics, and nothing would ever change. But Carrie is the story. Everything comes in and through her. I reckon that is why at times she is a bit unbearable, because there seems to be no escape from her world, which is incredibly chaotic, and not in a way that is necessary to the plot or the result of other things, but entirely avoidable by making better decisions. I'll give you guys that. It does get to a point. I often wonder though, what if the show had given more time to the other characters? What if someone else was the main character? Would we all be as sick of them as we now are of Carrie? Because, in fact, all of the characters are very flawed, except Miranda. That's my girl. For starters, they all are at least a little bit racist.
Your little white away from my brother! Get your big black ass in my face!
It's the only thing in the pantry that's totally safe. See? Made in Poughkeepsie.
I didn't want to chance it. It's a 5-star resort. It's Mexico. What do you want?
I want you to give me a twirl and a twirl.
I need to see you spin first, sister.
Except for Miranda. Miranda is actually a character that stands out because, with the exception of her entire relationship with Steve, who she should have left a while ago, and that is her own fault, she is a character for whom things happen to and not as a result of. She's a character who does not have a lot of issues, especially in comparison to her friends, and not herself to blame for most of them. But the show presents her as being a single, too career-driven kind of woman, and that is meant to be her major flaw. And I guess if the goal is to find a man and settle down, yes, that would kind of get in the way of that. But it's not a character flaw. She's very different to the other girls in this regard. All the other girls can really blame themselves for the issues they find in relationships. I guess she can come across as bitter and resentful and a bit too uptight, but none of these are a reason for her singleness so much as they are a byproduct. The show, I imagine, wanted to create 4 characters who were all perpetually single for different reasons and wanted to explore this dynamic in particular, what I like to call the Miranda Priestley dynamic, the woman who owns the business place. But the way in which her simply having a successful career is presented as being just as bad as Carrie's male-centeredness or Samantha's avoided attachment style, and specifically something she should be blamed for, is malarkey. Samantha is a character that is deeply loved because of the way she presents herself, but she is also deeply insecure and also relies on male validation, although I do love her. While she is praised for not being judgmental, she really should have more discernment than she does. She should have whooped Carrie's butt when she found out about that affair. Meanwhile, Charlotte is a little too judgmental and obsessed with an ideal of femininity that she herself doesn't even fully abide to. In fact, all of the girls rely on intimacy for internal acceptance, yet find themselves so different from one another. And while we're on the subject of Charlotte, because my foot stays on her overprivileged Fifth Avenue princess neck, let me say this, and I know that this is an unpopular opinion, but I'm going to speak my truth anyways. She was in the wrong for not offering to help Carrie when she was almost put out on the street. Yes, Carrie was financially irresponsible. And yes, it was very embarrassing at her big age. No one's ever claimed that the girl is perfect. And also, no, it's no one's responsibility to pick up your slack, but a true friend would never shun you as Charlotte did. How could she not even care? If your friend needs help and you have the solution lying around your house and you do nothing, you suck. If your friend is about to be homeless and you're rich and you do nothing, you suck. And if you honestly can tell me that if you were in that position, if your best friend couldn't afford a place to live and you were in a wealthy position, if you can tell me that you would really just ignore them, I'll put my hands up in defeat and back away from the sparring table because, quite frankly, you have bigger issues than me. The reason this gets under my skin, though, is because this is what rich people do. They convince themselves and everyone around them that their money is their money and they owe nobody nothing. They do it to get off taxes, charity, and contributing to society, which are all simply humane things to do. Charlotte had never seen the inside of a charitable institution a day in her life. But to keep this same energy when it comes to someone that you call a close friend, that's just messed up. And I feel very strongly about this, and I'm 100% right, so I rest my case. Anyways, as I was saying, all of them are quite male obsessed. I don't fault any of these women for the awful relationships they find themselves in, except for, again, Miranda, because I genuinely expect better from her. Steve made it so clear he was nothing but a deadbeat, and she still took him back, which he took full advantage of. And listen, while broke men do deserve love, not mine, but somebody's for sure, Steve's issue was not that he was broke. Steve's issue was that he lacked ambition and direction. He was a loser, big capital L, a scrub. I think him and Miranda were initially attracted to each other because they were so different that they brought out a different side to each other. But Miranda's successful career and maturity did not rub off on Steve nearly enough. I actually started getting annoyed with Miranda because if you are going to choose to be with him, then be with him. I hate when people do that. honestly. If you don't like someone or you can't get over something that they did, then don't be together. But if you are going to make that choice, that's on you. You're gonna have to get over yourself. She was so sick and tired of Steve, but still entertained him. You know what? If the child that you are fostering entirely of your own free will, that you call a boyfriend, wants you to go watch him shoot a ball at a hoop, despite the job that you have that pay the bills, that keep the roof over his head as well, you damn well better get to it. Carrie's great horrible love is a man who goes unnamed the entire duration of the original series. This is very intentional and something that stands out in contrast to what otherwise is a very all will be revealed show. It represents something. He remains untouchable and out of reach. Mr. Big, because everything he represents is so big. Even though nothing about him is even all that great, he simply symbolizes something so significant for Carrie. And what could that be? Hint. Remember how Samantha was originally into him and originally pursuing him? Carrie has an obsession with being the chosen one and being chosen by a man who seems incapable of choosing anyone but himself is the ultimate prize. Unfortunately, Carrie was really primed to be Mr. Big's victim. The more he pulled away, the more she got attached. I was so proud of her when she finally broke up with him at the end of season 1, but it didn't last. Him eventually marrying Natasha, having not wanting to marry Carrie, simply compounds her already incredibly low self-esteem, and she is in a very emotionally fragile position when she begins her affair with him. I genuinely feel sorry for how the affair began for Carrie because Big did manipulate emotionally and force himself onto her, and that is not talked about enough. The best thing that Big ever did for Carrie was die. I do not, however, feel bad for anything that Carrie did after that point, up to and including chasing poor Natasha around the city of New York. Not to worry though, Natasha for sure got her lick back.
I'm sorry he moved to Paris and fell in love with me. Now, not only have you ruined my marriage, you've ruined my lunch.
Pause. Girl, do you honestly think that Big ever loved you? Because I don't think he loved anyone besides his mama. Despite all this, Carrie still insists on being friends with him and forces Aiden, who she cheated on with Big, to be friends with him as well. That is so beyond the pale, I can't even. My least favorite part of the show is how they do fundamentally validate Carrie's warped worldview, particularly her obsession with being picked and her delusion that Big loved her all along. She was the one for him, but he simply got distracted along the way, the distraction being an entire marriage, by having her end up with him. It's interesting to see how Carrie views the world and how it affects her choices. It's interesting to analyze and digest all that. But why would any of that work out for her? That doesn't make sense to me. In my head, the Sex and the City universe ends with them coming back from the honeymoon in the movie, Carrie never seeing Big again, Miranda never getting back together with Steve, because after all that, what do the writers do? Have Steve cheat on Miranda. This isn't either of their videos, but this is so wildly out of character for Steve, it blows my mind. And then Carrie had the audacity to tell Miranda she made a mistake and to blame her for Big. Like Big hasn't always proved himself to be a POS. You have got to be kidding. During which Miranda was always there for you. You know what? Maybe I do hate Carrie actually, because if a man cheated on me and I left him and my friends told me I made a mistake, I genuinely would crash out. You will have never seen a crash out the way I would crash out, I'm telling you. But ultimately, I would not say that Carrie hurts the people around her. In fact, I would wager that that's the reason why it's so difficult for us to see her make the same mistakes again and again, to see her in a relationship with Big, because we do want better for her. Why else would we be so angry seeing someone screw up their own life? Why else do we keep coming back to this show again and again? In addition to how fleshed out the characters are, they have many traits that are similar to ones that very much exist in our reality, meaning there's a lot of room for projection. I'm left to assume that a lot of people project onto Carrie. Maybe they see in her a close friend who also refused to do right by her own self, maybe they recognize a past version of themselves who they honestly resent a bit. Although I would never want to be friends with Carrie in real life, or Samantha, or Charlotte, I can take comfort in knowing that she is wreaking havoc in a fictional universe far removed from this one. And here, in this universe, we can consume and learn a lot from her story. So all I'm saying is the next time you want to take a shot at Carrie, remember, you probably don't even hate her as much as you think you do. It's much more complicated than that. Thank you guys so much for watching, especially if you made it all the way to the end of this video, and I hope you liked it. If you did, please like, subscribe, let me know what you think about Sex and the City and Carrie down below. Go watch another video on my channel if you feel so inclined, and I will talk to you all so soon. Bye.